I feel like I only recently wore a ring shirt, but I have it in tie-dye as well, so here we are. So today we're gonna talk about the very exciting new release of X. Everyone's talking about it. I saw this on my birthday, which, let me tell you, that's a weird one to watch on a birthday where you feel kind of like you're getting older. Or I guess not old, because 32 isn't old, but starting to feel more your age, watching the time go by really quickly, you know what I mean? So I was gonna do a spoiler section of this video, but as I was writing my review out, I really don't think I have any commentary to add in a spoiler section, because nothing is that deep about this movie to where I need to like really dive into the ending or anything like that. Everything's pretty straightforward. So everything in this video is going to be spoiler free. So X is of course done by Ti West. He has not brought us a new movie, I think, in 6 years. He is known for The House of the Devil, The Sacrament, You're Next, The Innkeepers, which is a super underrated movie. I love The Innkeepers. And also some shorts from VHS and ABCs of Death. So X is an A24 movie that follows a film crew set out to make a cinematic adult movie set in rural Texas, but when their reclusive elderly hosts catch them, they find themselves fighting for their lives. Wow, was this movie a unique experience. This is unlike anything I've ever seen before, which is funny because there are so many things that it reminds me of, which we'll get to. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and originally I was going to say that this is going to be a single time watch for me because it was so uncomfy for me specifically, especially. But I really don't think it will be a single time watch. I think this is one that I can revisit now that I've seen it all and I've really sat with it, but this is a movie that I only fell in love with more and more as time went on and as I thought more about it. So obviously, I liked it a lot. That might surprise a lot of you because obviously this movie is surrounded by sexuality and sex scenes, and that is not my favorite thing in the horror genre. But I really enjoyed that element in this movie because in this movie it was done so well that it never felt too gratuitous, and they separated, for the most part, the horror and the sexuality, which I really appreciate because it's really when you combine the two that I really am not a fan. I like the juxtaposition between the sex positive camera crew and actors and everything with the prudish old man, and it's really commentating on the sexual liberation movement of the late 70s and this intergenerational conflict then. That still kind of applies today. I feel like there's a lot of commentary that you can take away from this as well that applies to today's world. There were definitely scenes that I felt weren't really necessary and felt a little bit gratuitous, but I call myself a prude. I'm very much a prude when it comes to sex in horror movies. I didn't hate the sex scenes in this because, like I said, it was separated from the horror elements for the most part. I mean, obviously some of this makes you uncomfortable with the sexuality because that's the whole concept of this movie. And it made for a really entertaining, well done movie. And I was so surprised by how much I liked this. I was kind of nervous going into it. I sound like I'm a 12-year-old going to see an R-rated movie for the first time. I'm like, ooh, I hope there's not too much. I hope I can handle it. Like I'm not a grown woman. But I was really surprised by how much I liked it because I was nervous that it was going to be not my cup of tea, and I was worried I was going to have to give a really negative review and then get people saying like, oh, you're just such a contrarian. You just love to hate things that people love. And whatever. Anyway, if you stuck around for the post-credits scene, if you didn't, I'm sure you can find something on YouTube eventually once it's released. I think there probably will be stuff on YouTube anyway of it, but as you know, there is a post-credits scene where we are shown kind of a preview of the prequel to X called Pearl. I believe that when it's already done filming, Ti West had actually asked Mia Goth if she wanted to stay back in New Zealand after they were done filming X to shoot the prequels, and she agreed. So Mia Goth will star as Pearl in the prequel. And honestly, the prequel looks pretty incredible, and I like that it looks so different to X. I think most of the horror elements take place during the daytime from what I can tell, and I think that's such a good juxtaposition to the nighttime kind of horror elements in X. And just visually, it looks completely different. It looks very colorful and vibrant and just like beautiful, and it just looks so different in tone. So I think that's going to be a really unique prequel. So speaking of Mia Goth, I just want to spend some time talking about the cast of this movie of X because I think it is one of the best things about this movie. Kid Cudi, of course, stars as Jackson, and I think he did an incredible job in this role. Brittany Snow really surprised me in this because because I don't really see her as this type of character. Like, I saw the kind of character she was going to play in the previews for X, and I was like, oh, can she do that? Like, is that not weird for her? Because I know her from Prom Night and Would You Rather, and in those movies she's much more innocent. So I was like, oh, is she going to play an adult film star? Like, that's interesting. But she killed it. She absolutely killed it, and I was so impressed by her in this role. I never thought I'd be like a huge Brittany Snow fan. Like, I think she's fine, obviously. She's in some really good movies, but I was never really like, yeah, she's a standout. But in this, she was great. Martin Henderson as Wayne in X is just great to see. He's obviously in The Ring, so it was really nice to see his face again, and I feel like he really channeled Matthew McConaughey in X, and it was great. Jenna Ortega, of course, is becoming our new Scream Queen, and I could not be more excited about it. She was hands down my favorite character and favorite actor from the new Scream movie, so I'm really happy to see her getting so many new roles and really like stepping out and, you know, becoming a horror queen. So I'm really excited to see what other projects she works on. I feel like I can safely like say that any movie that she comes out with, I'm gonna be excited for. Not necessarily I'm gonna love, but I will be excited to see her in future movies. And lastly, of course, we're gonna talk about the one and only Mia Goth. I think she absolutely stole the show in X. I've seen people describe her on social media in this movie as mesmerizing, and I think that's the best way to put it because she's such a unique actor, and I think she has such a unique look, and I think that really fits for this role because everyone around her is telling her she has something special, she doesn't look like anyone else, and she's gonna be a star. So I think for that role, again, perfectly cast. Especially next to Brittany Snow, who, no offense to her, but you know, is more like ordinary, like what you see in Hollywood all the time, and to have someone like Mia Goth be the one who's like being told that she's a star, I think is a really cool like side by side. Not to mention Mia Goth plays 2 roles in X. Do you guys remember when Tilda Swinton played 3 roles in Suspiria? Yeah, it's like that, which is just amazing. Like Mia Goth did such a fantastic job in this movie, like obsessed with all of the performances from every single actor. I think that hands down is one of the strongest things about this and what makes this movie so believable and fun. Like, I feel like if they had casted anyone else, this movie wouldn't be as fun as it is. The deaths, fantastic, so entertaining. I was so uncomfortable so many times. You know, you got that good old classic A24 head trauma going on, but also you have the good old classic Ti West kills, which seem to be very sudden and gruesome if you're familiar with You're Next. There were so many death scenes in X that really took me by surprise and like my jaw dropped. I was not expecting them at all. The jump scares in this were amazing, and that's so rare for me to say that. There was one that I hated more than anything, but besides that, I feel like the kills and the jump scares and everything, the horror elements in this were so strong, and it was the perfect amount. Like, you get the perfect amount of gore for this kind of movie. It's a classic type slasher movie. Like, there was one jump scare I didn't like. There was one death scene that I didn't hate. I actually really liked the death scene itself, but it was a little bit predictable. Like, I saw it coming from a mile away. But every other death was a complete surprise. I just felt so much while watching this, and that's really a good thing nowadays. I feel like there aren't very many movies where I go through a roller coaster of emotions, and I feel like this was the perfect balance of enjoyment and also pushing me a little outside my comfort zone, but not enough to where I never want to watch it again. It's like the perfect amount of outside of my comfort zone and not the typical horror movie that I usually watch. I just think it's because everything was done so well. Like, I can't really fault this movie. The score was so creative, and I absolutely loved that. The story is fantastic. Obviously the cast, like the cast and the performances, the acting and everything. That's my favorite part about it, I think, is the cast. Like, they could not have done it any better. If they cast anyone else in any of these roles, it would not be the same movie. And I'm sure my reaction to this movie is going to surprise a lot of you because I have a feeling that some of you anticipated that I would actually really hate this movie given all the sex in it, and the way that the whole movie kind of revolves around sex, that you probably thought it was not going to be my thing. And I really did not think it was going to be either. I am just as surprised as you. I'm not sure why. Like, well, obviously there's a lot of things to love about this movie. Like, how could I not enjoy this movie? How could you watch this and not like it? It's one of those where I can't wrap my head around it any other way. Now, not all movies need to have like this big metaphor or underlying meaning. I think there is something there with X, and I am not sure if the point is really, you know, coming across very strongly. I feel like the point of the movie should have been underlined a little bit more. Maybe I was expecting it to be a little bit more obvious, but also it could just be straightforward with the story. You know, it doesn't have to be this huge metaphorical meaning or anything, unless I'm missing something. I mean, obviously there's some commentary in there, but as far as like metaphors or anything like that, please let me know what your theories are, or if I missed something, or, you know, if you just have any comments on that. Now, I will say the fact that the horror elements and the killers are elderly people, there's a little bit of criticism in that it could be a little exploitative of elderly people. And I know you're gonna laugh at that, but it is something that bothers me in horror movies. It's like, is it scary, or is it just scary because they're old? You know, like, just because of the fact they're decrepit looking doesn't make it horrifying, you know what I mean? So I don't like movies to rely on that fact, and the fact that they're just old, to make you uncomfortable. And this movie did do that for a couple scenes. Granted, they are younger actors in old age makeup, so they're not like genuinely old people. Like in The Visit, it's one of the reasons why I don't enjoy that movie. But of course, their appearances played into the horror elements a little bit, and that's not really my favorite thing to rely on, the fact that they're just old. You know what I mean? Maybe it's different for everyone, and not everyone, of course, is going to think that, and that might be really like nitpicky, but that's just one of my kind of criticisms about this movie, is the reliance on the appearance of the old people to make you uncomfortable. Anyway, that's all I really have to say about it. I absolutely loved this movie, and I cannot wait for Pearl. I am so excited for it. I'm so surprised that I'm really into this movie. I'm taken aback. I don't know. I would love to hear your thoughts on X if you've seen it. If you haven't, definitely see it in a theater if you can. It is so incredible. Oh, I do want to say that I did walk out on a certain scene. I had to go to the bathroom anyway, and I try to hold it as long as possible. But then they started singing Landslide by Fleetwood Mac, and I just can't hear that song on my birthday. Like, I can't do it. I will absolutely have a mental breakdown. And I wasn't trying to cry on my birthday, so I got a little teary, and I was like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom now. That song will get me anytime anyway, because my mom used to sing it to me, so it's like, that's a lot. It caught me off guard. I was not expecting them to sing that song. So that was, you know, emotional. That's one of the reasons why on my birthday, that was a little intense. But besides that, it was great. Great experience. Absolutely loved it. Fun ride. Just a wild, wild movie. So unique, like nothing I've ever seen. And I loved that. I feel like it was such a gift from the universe for my birthday. I'm like, oh, I want more like really cool original horror. And the universe was like, well, here you go. Here's a bunch of movies coming out on the weekend of your birthday. Thank you. Anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts on X if you've seen it down below. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.